welcome all of you that come to Jamestown. We love to see you. I try to keep my introductions very short, not because people don't deserve long and warm introductions, but I ask you to read the material about the two gentlemen, and I'm going to tell you what I find most interesting about them personally, and you can judge. Now, my friend Murad Batal al-Shishani is someone that if you, and I just asked you to try this experiment when you go back to your laptop. Simply, take his name and put it in your little Google slip and put Jamestown. And you will get, when you do that, among the many things that Google will give you, is something that will take you to his page on the Jamestown website. And when you go to that page, I challenge you not to find, out of the many articles he's written about individual groups, his bio in here just doesn't do justice to the breadth of the groups that he has covered. You will find something that you didn't know, even if you think you know a lot. And if I'm wondering about a group, I will swear, I go to that home page, I go to Murad's place, and I'll find something that he's written that will tell me. And again, like Thomas, it's going to be sourced, it's going to be exact, it's going to be fact-based. So very honored to be with these two today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for your kind words. I hope I deserve them, but, thank you very much. And thanks, Thomas, for your extensive and very rich presentation. I will speak the impact of the Arab Spring, as we now call it, on the Al-Qaeda and the affiliated Salafi jihadist groups. I was going to show some clips. Unfortunately, video doesn't work for technical reasons, but we have some audio, so we'll enjoy it. One of the major scenes that been very alarming to me in these recent Arab protest movements was to see jihadists among the protesters in the streets. Jihadists usually refuse to go in a protest of political activism, something other than physical violent jihad. They refuse it usually, and there are many literatures on that. But in the recent days, we have seen those jihadists are protesting in the streets of Amman, Salt, Ma'an, Zarqa. This definitely, this certain picture, it was a video, unfortunately it doesn't work, it was in Zarqa town, which the hometown of Abu Mus'ab Zarqawi. They went to streets and was definitely asking for implement Sharia, but at the same time, the major demand, they were asking to release the prisoners and the foreign fighters, as Thomas mentioned now, because they thought that those foreign fighters went to Iraq or Afghanistan to defend the Muslim Ummah, so you don't need to treat them as you treated domestic terrorists. But at the same time, this created a situation which I will, as Bruce mentioned, that yes, Arab awakening creating a sort of challenge in the Arab world now these days for the potential recruit in the future. But in my perspective, I believe that we need to focus on opportunity that of the democracy. And why I'm mentioning that, in last 15 years, I'm following the militant Islamic groups, and I've never seen they are in the lower and in the worst situation as I'm seeing them today. And thus, not because killing bin Laden, not because of drone attacks, although these played to some extent a role in that, but majorly because of the Arab Spring. And why is that? Because Arab Spring had presented an alternative first to frustrated Arab youth and their youth movements. Also, they were very feasibly, they could topple regimes they couldn't topple by violent jihad in the last 3 decades, if you like. Having this said, we've seen that there's a sort of, as a lady asked here, and a sort of change in their ideology, of course, in the tactique and strategies as well. From these scenes, I will start, they have, as they are marginalized in the Arab streets, they have their rhetoric was not accepted by youth. They started to present what I called it a soft political rhetoric. For instance, let's listen to this audio of Ayman Zawahiri, and the translation to the left, you can find it. He's talking about an issue of killing civilians. Please.
بغض النظر عن صحة أو زيف نسبة هذه العمليات للمجاهدين، فإني وإخواني في جماعة قاعدة الجهاد نبرأ إلى الله من هذه العمليات ونستنكرها، سواء كان من ارتكبها المجاهدون أو غيرهم. وقد كلفني الشيخ أسامة بن لادن حفظه الله مجددا أن أؤكد على هذا الأمر، ولذا فإني أنصح كل مجاهد أن يراعي أحكام الشريعة ومصلحة المسلمين قبل الشروع في أي عملية جهادية.
I hope the Mukhabarat and CIA not come to arrest us now. Having this, you see this, the shielding, the terrorist concept was one of the founding or justification that used to justify several attacks of Al-Qaeda, especially the 9/11. But now they are, and also at the same time, killing civilians, killing Muslims was the major weakest point of Al-Qaeda, if you like. So there's a huge arguments on that. This is started after toppling Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. He started to present this, this rhetoric, if you like. Now, on the second level, Al-Qaeda and affiliated Salafi jihadists start to adopt a new rhetoric towards the political activism, which was refused, as I mentioned before. This is Mohammed Fazzazi, Sheikh Mohammed Fazzazi, one of the ideologues of Moroccan Salafi jihadists. He was imprisoned on because on accusation or on charge for inspiring Casablanca bombs in 2003. But he was released a couple months ago. And this taking part in a voting in Morocco latestly, which resulted by win of Islamists. Mohammed Fazzazi was the strongest critical for democracy concept. He considered it's an infidelity, it's kufr. He doesn't allow to participate in political participation in general. And one of his major books was criticizing Yusuf al-Qardawi, Sheikh Yusuf al-Qardawi, for accepting democracy. He has a couple books against democracy, but now this changed that, obviously, as you see. Also this one, Ibrahim al-Rubeish in Yemen, IP, sorry, Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. Al-Rubeish is a Saudi, he's an ideologue of very prominent, and also here's a translation, we can hear the audio. He's asking Saudis to go in protests instead of just because they are unable to wage jihad. So he's asking to gather in front of interim ministry, asking to release the prisoners, and at the same time, it doesn't matter if you go to jail, if you're forced or beaten up by the police. Here, this is the change. This reminds me, Abu Qatada al-Falastini, well-known ideologue of Salafi jihadist, wrote a book in early 90s, Al-Jihad wal-Ijtihad. In this book, he was mentioning specifically that people who are arguing for political activism, it will not work. Just we need to implement a physical, violent jihad. Now, this is, I think, a change, but it seems, can we hear the audio?
أما إني وإن كنت أدعو إلى أن السبيل الأقوى لفكاك الأسرى هو الجهاد، لأن ما أخذ بالقوة لا يسترد إلا بالقوة، ولكني أقول إن لم يكن ذلك فلا أقل من أن يستمر الناس في التجمع أمام الداخلية بشكل دوري حتى يجدوا حلا لهذه القضية، وإذا سجن البعض أو استعملت القوة ضدهم فلا بد من الصمود. أليس من العار أن تفلح بعض الشعوب في إسقاط حكامها الطغاة المستبدين ونفشل نحن ليس في المطالبة بفكاك أسرانا، وإنما في المطالبة بأن يجمع الأخ مع أخيه والابن مع أبيه بدلا من تفريق في السجون المتفرقة.
Okay. Now, obviously, Al-Qaeda and affiliated groups, I'm not talking about franchise and I'm not talking about Qaeda. I'm not doing this distinction. I'm talking about an ideological level which will reflect on their behavior, on their political move. Having this said, now Al-Qaeda, how will respond to this challenge? And I believe it's genuinely a real challenge to Al-Qaeda ideology. And maybe me worried now to find a new career, Glenn will be asking now, next year will be a conference on Al-Qaeda or not? But I assure you, no, still early to speak about that. Al-Qaeda now implementing this strategy, as we see, that to moving the movement from heart of Muslim world, as they call the Arab world, into the peripheries. Specifically, in several areas, they are started already to implement their ideology, and they started to localize jihad. And I'm talking about this theory in 2 years from now. Localizing jihad means not just to create alliances with local militant groups. No, just let them adopt our strategy. Let them adopt our ideology, which is more important. You can say Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, Haqqani Network, and Punjabi Taliban groups like Askar Janjawi and Jaish Sahaba, and also, of course, the Kashmiri or militant groups also. We have, I don't know if you read a couple weeks ago, Newsweek have published a review of Siraj al-Din Haqqani introduced a book published or distributed in North Waziristan, they're urging people to adopt the global jihad ideology, which we've seen also that in some plots, especially in the West, were involved, linked not to Al-Qaeda, to the local groups like Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or Haqqani or others. This strategy, I think now they will start to seek opportunities in the world. And of course, AFPAC region, they're already there. Local jihad, it's become a reality. At the same time, there's a Central Asia, which we've started to notice recently, people who will be formed in a way as a militant groups, going back to the Central Asia's countries. I'm not talking about the traditional Islamic movement of Uzbekistan just, but Ittihad al-Islami and others. There are new merged groups. They are migrating to their own countries in Kazakhstan. North Caucasus. North Caucasus still, the local grievances is the most driven factor for the issues there. But recently we have seen that a lot of literature of Salafi jihad is being translated to Russian language, which is common in North Caucasus. At the same time, we have seen in North Caucasus, they are generating their own ideologues, their own Salafi jihadist ideologues, Said Buratsky, if you like, and of course the Saiful Islam Zor Estemirov. Having this said, also this will be a potential place that where the Salafi jihadist will think of it. Having this said, I thought that still, although there are huge challenges to Salafi jihadist groups, there's one thing I need to mention, I haven't, that the Arab world thing. We have Yemen, Syria, and also other places, there's potential that people will be radicalized. In Syria, for instance, you will find that there's a huge literature written by Salafi jihadists to wage a war against what they call it, the Nusayri regime. Also, you can see in Yemen is a golden opportunity to them still. But I still believe the only factor that can challenge Salafi jihadists on ideological and on strategic level, as is seen in last year, it could be a democratic states in Arab world. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thought that we could not, skip the Arab Spring and Al-Qaeda Salafi jihadist easily, even in a crowded conference like this one. To Murad, please, how do you see the future of Salafists in Egypt? They did remarkably well so far in the elections. What do you think? You talked about the previous stage ideologues, Abu Qatada, for example, and we know about the self-criticism movement of the Al-Muraja'at in 1990s, which point out a new stage. What do you think about the future in terms of ideology?
Thank you for mentioning Muraja'at. Yeah, you hit the point exactly. From then, we can talk about the jihadists of Egypt have been turned around, become more political activists rather than being jihadists. Being that they are more closer to Muslim Brotherhood, if you like, other than jihadists in this stage, if we draw a line. But regarding the Salafis themselves, mostly the Salafis in Egypt who took part in the elections recently are the traditional Salafis, which usually they refute and they are against the ideology of Salafi jihadists represented by Al-Qaeda and affiliated groups. Having said that, also, they are, by participating in the parliament, and the political participation, they have breached one of their founding concepts against taking part in the in elections. So I think that although they have gained a good amount of seats this first stage, but I think it's still more a sensational issue for sensational news outlets rather than being an actual change in Egypt. I think Muslim Brotherhoods are stronger than them. Also, they will lose the support of the ideological support of the Salafis worldwide. So I don't think it will be next round they have what they have done now.